joining us today. I'm Kelly from Business Tasmania to our How to Get Started in Business online event. I'm joined today by Fleur Bourke from Fusion Business Services. Fleur is one of our business advisors in our two business advice services that I'm going to talk about today. So please feel free to ask questions throughout the session. You will receive the slides tomorrow as well so that you can access those. You will find that your microphone and your camera is not enabled for privacy reasons, but feel free to ask questions as you wish through the Q&A or through raising your virtual hand as we go through. So I'd like to begin with providing an overview of the Business Tasmania service and the range of support you can access. And then I'll be handing over to Fleur, who'll be actually talking through what's involved in how to getting a business started. So before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the Tasmanian Aboriginal people, the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, and pay my respect to elders past and present and to the Aboriginal people across the state. So the Business Tasmania service, I have the pleasure of managing it. It's a state government service and we exist to help anyone across Tasmania in any way that we can to get started in business. And once you're up and running in business, you can actually come back to us for any different type of support you may need through running a business from day one through to 5 years, 10 years, throughout the whole life cycle of your business. So the Business Tasmania team is incredibly passionate about providing you with the very best solution to meet your needs. And so you can actually call the team or email or connect with us at face-to-face events or online events like these. And we can actually have a conversation and work out what your needs are and then make sure that we're actually matching you up with the very best option, whether that be a service to assist you, access to a funding program or connection with someone across government. So businesses across any industry can access our support and any size of business. But typically most of our customers are small businesses because around 97% of businesses in Tasmania are small. And so many of our great small businesses do contact us. You'll see on the screen some examples. We provide connections to advice services. We run many events and workshops on varied topics around the state and online. I'll talk to you about accessing our business advice service, and we have Fleur with us today. There are digital mentors you can access for digital support, and we have so much information and tools and resources that you could dream of in many ways you can actually find what you're looking for on our website or by calling the team. So I'm going to touch on a key offering delivered by the state government, and it's the Tasmanian Business Advice Service. So Fleur is one of our business advisors, and she delivers both the new business support pilot program and the Tasmanian Business Advice Service. So we have equivalents of Fleur all around the state. So if you're sitting there and you're thinking about starting a business, or you've got an Australian business number less than 12 months old, you can get started with 2 hours of free advice on anything that you need at that point in time. And then once your Australian business number clocks over to 12 months old, you can then go on and access 5 hours of free advice each financial year. And again, it can be on anything. It can be you might have a new idea, you might have a challenge, you might want a sounding board, anything at all in regards to running your business, you can access support from the advice service. So Fleur is based in the Northwest. However, in saying that, you can access Fleur's service regardless of where you are. It's a very flexible model. So we have advisors all around the state, as you can see from that slide, but it's you can actually self-select who you prefer and who you think best meets your needs. So you can actually go to the Business Advice website, read the bios of all the advisors, and then you can go, I think this person aligns to me and what I'm trying to achieve, and you can select who you would like to book in and see. Or you can contact the Business Tasmania team and we can arrange that for you as well. So totally flexible and up to you as to who you might like to see. So that's certainly an advice service and incredibly valuable and can make such a difference to how you're running your business if you can make the time to work on your business. I appreciate it's so very difficult when you're working in the business, sparing that time. But please, keep that in mind as this is one example of the support you can access through Business Tasmania. Another great offering, if you employ staff, is the Employer of Choice Assist program. Again, no cost, and you can access this service if you're a small business, so less than 20 full-time equivalent staff. And this program can assist you with anything at all regarding employing staff. You might have a performance issue. You might need to help attracting staff. You might need help with developing contracts, checking awards. So this is a great offering. Again, by contacting Business Tas, you can access the Employer of Choice Assist. So getting great feedback about this service as well. Another offering we have recently launched is the Workplace Relations Helpline. So this complements the Employer of Choice Assist program. So you can actually access quick answers through this helpline service regarding, it could be again awards. We've recently promoted, I think it was yesterday in our newsletter, that the awards recently increased for the minimum awards across Australia. So you might have a quick employment question you might like answered very quickly on the spot, or an award question, or anything to do with workplace relations. So this helpline can actually support you further as well. Digital. So I'd like to share the details of our Australian Government colleagues' Digital Solutions Tasmania offering. So many of us need to continue to work on our digital skills, to particularly in light of how to attract customers to your business, compete with your competitors. The digital space is always changing so very much. So if you're sitting there and you're thinking you have a digital need, which many of us do, you can access this service at very low cost of $59. So you can be accessing business advice through Fleur's offerings or one of the advisors in Fleur's network, but you can also then be at the same time, if you can make the time, accessing digital support through the Digital Solutions program. So you can actually get 4 hours of free, I shouldn't say free, 4 hours of very low cost advice for $59, but they also for that price offer a range of workshops and webinars and an online platform. So they have mentors all around the state in that particular offering. And again, they can meet your needs regardless of whether you're at a very basic level, medium, advanced, a whole range of different topics. So please keep that in mind, because I know some of you had some questions when you registered around the digital space. So get in touch with us and we can certainly connect you. Again, it's for our small businesses, running it for-profit businesses, as you can see, but there are some concessions where the $59 fee can be waived as well. Just want to quickly show you the screenshot of our website, and stay tuned. Later in the year, we're refreshing it and we'll have a brand new look and a great, more improved content on the website. You'll see in the middle of the homepage, you can subscribe to our newsletter. And I encourage you, if you don't already, to do that, because it's a great way of staying informed of when there's important new information for Tassie businesses or when there's a new funding program announced. So please subscribe to the newsletter, or if you prefer, you can follow us on Facebook, because that's a great way of staying in touch with what's happening. If you do prefer to follow us on Facebook rather than getting another email. But we don't bombard you, and we're very selective with what we include in the newsletter, and we get feedback that's a very trusted source of information. So I can see that I've got a question there. So I'll just get Jing to enable the functionality, and feel free to ask your question.
Justina, have enabled your microphone. You can unmute yourself and ask a question.
Go. Sorry, trying to work out how to unmute. Hi, Kelly.
Hi.
Sorry to speak, but I can't find the Q&A on my screen at the top, so I've gone for the speaking option.
Oh,
Could you just
absolutely.
could you just explain? I might have missed it, but how do we contact Digital Solutions Tas for the digital info and
Absolutely.
advice?
Absolutely. So there's a couple of options. What I'll do is I'll get Jing to in a moment in the um, Q&A, which you can't access, so that's not a good place to put it in. Um, what we can do when we email the slides out tomorrow, we'll make sure that within that email, the contact details for Digital Solutions are included.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Or if you prefer, you can certainly call our business TAS team, and we can also talk to you about, we can connect you with the Digital Solutions
Great.
team. That's not a problem at all, and talk to you about anything else as well at the time.
Thank you.
That's all right. Welcome. So just yes, a newsletter, sign up. You don't want to miss out on anything. One of the most difficult conversations I have is when I talk to a business and they ring up and say, look, Kel, I want to apply for that grant program. I've just found out about it, but it was closed. And so because funding programs, grant programs, everyone wants to know about them. And when they do come up, when that opportunity does present itself, you don't want to miss the opportunity, so that you can have a look, work out if you're eligible, call us if you're unsure, and we can talk through what's involved in the program. So that's a great way of why to stay informed with what's happening. So and just quickly on the website, funding and support was a very prominent tile. That is, I would say, by far and away the most common inquiry that we receive. And so on our funding and support page, we really keep our ear to the ground, so to speak, and make sure that we're across any state or Australian government opportunities, and we link through to council opportunities for any Tassie business so that we can make sure that those opportunities are being presented to you. Some people like to go to the website and look and find out or have a read, what am I eligible for? But a lot of people just prefer to pick up the phone or email the Business Tas team and say, look, this is me, Kel, I'm running a cafe, been doing it for 2 years, like to update my coffee machine. Is there anything I can apply for? And, and we can very quickly tell you if there's anything by way of grants or loans or any sort of subsidies. So that I just wanted to mention that because the information is freely available here and on our Australian Government colleagues' website, business.gov.au. You don't have to pay for that information because there are businesses out there that charge for that service, but I just want to let you know it's fairly accessible here. So there are many ways in which you can contact Business Tas. So through the website, we have a phone line, email, we're very active on Facebook, through the newsletter, and these sorts of events, which we run a lot of face-to-face events and online events, which you can access through the event calendar at the top of our website. So keen to hear more from you when we send out this really short survey tomorrow to understand what you thought of our session today and get your ideas for future events that you might like us to run for you. So at that point, I'll wrap my part of the session up and I'll stop sharing and I'll hand over to Fleur Bourke. As I mentioned, she's our business advisor in our new business support pilot program and the Tasmanian Business Advice Service. So I'll hand over to Fleur.
Thanks, Kel, for the introduction. So I'll just share my screen with our slides. Okay, just give me half a second.
Okay.
Okay. Cool.
Perfect.
Can see those?
We can see. Thanks,
Lovely. Thank you. So as Kel touched on, basically what I'm going to do is give a little bit of a run through of how sort of a new business comes into place, what are the sort of things that you have to consider, what are your legal obligations and those types of things. So this is very sort of general specific advice. So that it's very general advice. It's not going to be specific to your needs. So if a specific question comes out of this, it's probably best that you make an appointment with one of the NBS providers, or, you know, if, like Kel said, you've had an ABN for longer than 12 months, then you can make an appointment with one of the TBAS providers to look at your individual situation. So to start off, Kel's talked about the program, so I don't need to go into that. A little bit about me. I am an accountant, have been for the last 25 years, but for the past, probably slide's a bit old, past 12 years, sorry, 15 years, I've actually been running my own business, and I also have a farm with my husband. I think in doing that, we have a greater understanding of what we're all trying to achieve in small business, how it works within a family environment, how it ties in with it, and just we know what it's like, basically. Yep. And you'll probably find that with the majority of the TBAS and the NBS advisors, in that they do all run their own businesses, and it's specifically for that reason, so that we know we've been through it. So very, very first in its basic infancy, you start to have this thought about having a business. So for myself, so 15 odd years ago, I worked in an accounting practice, and I decided, yeah, it might be time to do things my own way, to run it my own way. So there's various things you have to think about when you set up a business. Your very first thing that you need to think about is research. So what that is it's basically assessing your business idea or your business concept. So are you filling a gap in the market, for example, or are you entering into a market where there's a greater supply of goods or services needed? So where is your offering going to sit in the market? That sort of then very much ties into your research of the market, and that can be like surveys or focus groups, through social media, and statistical data as well. Say, for example, the Australian Bureau of Statistics. So in the first instance, what you are doing is you are data gathering to see where your business is going to fit, and essentially in the long term, is your business going to be viable? So that's things like ensuring that there are going to be sufficient customers for what you're doing. So, you know, if you opened up, say, for example, I don't know, a little ballet clothing shop in Ulverston here, you probably know there's probably not going to be enough customers. It might be a fantastic, nice idea, but probably the market isn't going to support it. And that's where all of this data and research comes into it. And it's also about defining your unique selling point and where you are different to people that are offering the same goods and services as you. And that's really important, because that can give you that advantage, and that can come in a number of different ways. It's not about being cheap or anything like that. What it's about is you doing things differently to others in the market that customers can perceive an additional value for, and therefore will come to you for it. It's looking at your competitors, assessing what they do, how they do business, what their offerings are, and even using some tools like SWOT, so strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats analysis, those types of things to determine sort of where you fit in. But from all of that, the takeaway is analyse the results and ensure, essentially, when you've done all this research about where your idea of your business will fit in, is to make the decisions on research and findings rather than essentially emotional decisions, because that will provide essentially for the longevity of the business. So once you've done that and you've figured out where you fit and what you've got is a viable idea, then we sort of look at sort of the structure and how we're going to actually start up a business. One of the main imposts, of course, for us all is the cost of starting up that business. Now that can vary. For example, buying an already existing business, which falls in under this as well, versus starting up your own business. But at the end of the day, the methodology of going through the costs is pretty much exactly the same. So what we do is we've done all the research, we've got some numbers. So from that, then we can look at some cash flow and financial forecasting. And you can always come back to your TBAS or your MBS consultant to help you put all of this together. So your cash flow forecasting will give you an idea, say, for example, where your break-even point is going to be, how much it's going to cost you to open the doors, you know, all of those types of things. And for us all as business owners, we take on a lot of risk in opening our own business. So we want some return for that as well. And usually it's a return sort of over and above what you would do if you were employed elsewhere. So it's bringing all of these things in together to forecast to see how it's going to look. And that ties in with also ensuring that your business will eventually be profitable. With regards to startup costs, you know, it very much depends on the type of business you are going to set up and what you're going to need for that business. Are you going out to start doing carpentry work and you need to get a new ute straight away? Are you going to start like a professional services business, like a lawyer and accountant, and basically you can work from home and just have a computer and a phone? It's all of those types of things. It's working out what it's going to cost you to basically open the door to start then generating business. The other one is having a look at, do you need finance? So if you are buying an already existing business, it's going through banking channels, for example, to find, you know, to see whether you can loan the money to purchase the business, and that's where cash flow and financial forecasting become really important for banks. Or again, like it might be the carpenters that's going out doing work, he needs the new ute. So how's the best way to finance that as well? Also need to start to have a look at what assets do you currently have and what assets do you require also to start the business, and how you will fund these. So they're all really, so all of these sort of items, the market research, the cash flow, the funding, they all work in together to basically allow you to make a really informed decision of, is this a good business? Can it be funded? And does it have longevity?
Fleur, I might just pause there and just remind everyone how they can ask questions. So if anyone does have a question, I'll just explain how you can do that again. So if you're on a laptop, towards the top of your screen, in the middle at the top, you should see a Q&A function there. So you can click on there and pose the question that you'd like to ask, and I can ask it for you on your behalf. Or if you're on a mobile device, you should be able to see 3 dots and then click on that, and then you'll see the Q&A. Or the other option is raising your virtual hand. So if you're on a desktop or a laptop, you'll see it towards the top of your screen near the Q&A. Again, mobile device, through the 3 dots, and then you'll see a hand there. And once you do raise your virtual hand, Jing will enable your functionality to unmute, and so you can ask the question yourself if you prefer. So I just wanted to recap on that in case you do have any questions for Fleur as we go through. Thanks, Fleur.
Thanks, Kel. So another really useful tool is for you to develop a business plan. What usually happens is that people don't develop business plans until they need a business plan. So that's either when they're going for finance or funding or something like that. It's seen as a requirement for that rather than a requirement for their business as such. But a business plan can be a really useful tool to give you direction, to assess, and to also assess how you are doing things. And I know Business Tas has an excellent template on their website with regards to all the different things that you should consider when you're putting one of these business plans together. And for new businesses, it can be really useful, because what it also does is it tags things that you probably wouldn't have thought of either. So that's why it is such a good tool. Basically, it's broken down into the different areas as stated on the slide there. So the mission is basically the purpose of the business. So it's, you know, it's selling clothing to 30 to 50-year-olds, or it's doing boutique joinery for kitchens or something like that. That's the purpose of your business. It also has considers the vision, so basically the direction you are headed towards. So what this does is it allows you then to map out the steps that you are going to take to get to where you want this business to be. It also considers the values, your core values, which are essentially the business's core values, so the underlying principles that drive your business. So whether that's providing, you know, providing an excellent service or a better customer service, or it's providing something that's, sorry, just wondering how to explain it. So the next thing is you're looking at your strategy. So what are your business objectives? Is it to be at a certain stage in 3 years' time? Is it start to doing, say, government work in 5 years' time? Or is it to have a client base of, you know, a particular dollar worth in so many years' time? It also has a look at your market. So who are the intended recipients or buyers of your products or services? So again, going back to the dress shop, is most likely going to be women between 30 and 50 years old. So they're the ones that you're going to market towards. If it's the boutique joiner, then it might be high-end builders or something like that that you market towards, or that type of thing. So what it is, it's allowing you to hone in your marketing strategy to allow for the growth in your business.
Fleur, we have a question at that point. Sorry for jumping in there. So we've got a virtual hand raised. If you'd like to ask your question.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry, it's me again. I was asked, it was interesting because I was, when you mentioned core values, that struck me because I'm wondering how much core values can actually get in the way of a successful business. And I don't mean I want to be mercenary in what I do and dishonest, but I think I'm doing a bit of a lifestyle change from a profession where I've been paid a salary all my life, and I'm changing to running a business. And I have values because that's why I've changed, but I'm sort of concerned about getting a bit too emotionally tied to core values, and whether that can be a little bit, I'm not sure if harmful is the right word, but distracting to a successful business, I guess.
Yeah. I suppose that comes back to how I talked about in the first instance. It's emotional decisions versus business decisions. That's the difference. So the core values are sort of like basically how the premise that your business is set upon. So just saying my business, for example, I'm accountant. So it's about honesty. It's about continued professional development, keeping up with standards. Those types of things, they are the core values. It's staff that treat the clients well. It's having good relationships with all of our clients. They're sort of our underlying core values. So our underlying core values have got nothing to do with what we charge, how much we make, how much we pay, anything of like that. That's the values that we build our business on. Does that sort of answer the question?
Yes. Yeah, yep. No, that's helpful. Thank you.
Cool, thanks. Yep. Yeah, so we talked about the market, then we talk about analysing the competitors. And the business plan that's on the BT website does a lot of provides a lot of time, also devotes a lot of time to this area. So what it does is you look at your competitors, you look at what they do, you look at what they sell, you look at how they do it, and then once again you work out how you're going to do it and what your point of difference is. And that point of difference separates you from your competitors and hopefully allows for your growth. It also, of course, considers human resources, so your management, your team, your employees, if you have employees, your capacity basically to deliver what you're intending to deliver through your business as well. And then, of course, it also considers finances. So that's sort of your financial capacity. So again, it comes up to your startup. It comes out to, like, do we like to have a nice buffer in our bank account? Do we have enough fund to grow? If we think we're going to need this excavator in 2 years' time to start working on the bigger build sites, how are we going to fund that? Cash flows, all of those types of things. So I really recommend you go and have a look at the one on the Business Tas website, because it is by far the best one that I've ever seen. And I refer it to everyone, and it's a really, really good tool to use. So once you've gone through all of those types of things, then you sort of get down to the nitty-gritty about, right, we need to actually, I've done all my homework. I know what I'm going to do. I know how to do it. I know how to fund it. I know that it's probably going to break even in the first instance, then it's going to become profitable. So now we have to put something in place. So the first thing you need to consider is what sort of business structure that you want to go into. And there's basically the 4 main business structures listed there on the slide. And then, of course, in addition to that, there's the incorporated associations, also known as not-for-profits, which is like your BMX clubs and your mountain bike clubs and those types of things, which are tax exempt. What we find is that a lot of people, when they haven't been in business before, choose the sole trader option, where you operate under your own tax file number. You just get an ABN and attach to it. And it's a pretty easy structure to work within. And what it does is it sort of allows for someone to dip their toe in the water, see whether business is for them. And what it does is it's a really easy structure then to grow. The thing with a sole trader is that all income is completely attributable to you and all business expenses are deductible to you. So what that means is that any profit that you make out of the business is taxed at your marginal tax rate. What it also means with a sole trader is that if you're operating in an area that is slightly litigious, like, you know, accountant, architect, engineer, own a nightclub, building, anything like that, whereas there is a chance that you might be sued, in that sort of structure, you don't have any limited degree of protection at all over personal assets such as family homes and that type of thing. A partnership is very much like a sole trader, isn't a separate legal entity. A partnership is a husband and a wife pooling assets to operate a business, or best friends or strangers. Doesn't have to be 2, can be as many people as you want. It's basically a pooling of assets. Income is shared and expenses are shared, and pretty much it works pretty much like the sole trader. It just allows for more than one person. Trust. Trusts are embedded in really, really old law, so they're a little bit on the archaic side, and they're falling out of favour at the moment with banks and so forth. But what trusts do is the business is run through a separate legal entity, which has the ability to distribute profits at its discretion among family members. That's a very general overview. The other main one is the company. The beauty with companies is 2 things. One is there's a limited degree of liability. So it does give you a degree of protection over your personal assets if you work in an area that's litigious. The other thing also is that it has a flat tax rate of 25%. So if your business grows and grows and you're in one of the other structures and you're jumping up marginal tax rates, and then you might hit the highest one, and when you're paying the Medicare levy, you might as well be paying 50 cents in the dollar. You can manage that by using a company. Sole traders and partnerships are very, very simple to set up. Companies and trusts require trust deeds, constitutions, minutes, and all of those types of things. So there's more administration each year, there's more setup cost, but the flip side of that is they provide either flat tax rates, limited liability, or discretion to distribute income. So what I suggest is that, if you're looking into business, going into business, it's best to sit down with someone and go through all the pros and cons and how each one of them works, and decide then what suits your situation the best. So once you've got your business structure, whether it be partnership, company, or a trust, or you decide just to go as a sole trader, what you'll do then is either yourself or your accountant will go and get a tax file number and also an ABN. So every business in Australia is required to have an Australian business number. I've put on the slide the website that you need to go to. That is the one that you need to go to. If at any stage you go somewhere and they say this is going to cost you, you've gone into a third party, looks very much like the right website, but you've gone into a third party, it is free to get an ABN and a tax file number. So you just need to go back to this website, and that's where you need to get it. Once you've done the application, that virtually comes back in real time. So you've got it straight away. Tax file numbers take a little bit longer if you go with one of the entities, but you don't need a tax file number to start trading, open bank accounts, get your insurance, all of those types of things. It's your ABN that you need. The other thing that you might want to consider is a business name. And this is for any of those entities again. So for me, Fleur Bourke, if I want to be known to anyone business-wise other than Fleur Bourke, I am required to register a business name. Again, I've got the website on there that you need to go to, and the fees. What you do is you register a business name and you attach that to your ABN, and that will always be there as long as you keep paying the registration fee. With business names, they have to be unique throughout Australia. So ASIC website has a great search function on it where you can put the name that you would like, and it'll tell you whether it's available, whether it's not available, or whether there's some pretty similar ones out there. The other registrations that you'll also need to consider, and again, this is maybe a talk with your tax agent or your consultant or something like that, are things like registering for GST, whether you should or not. Sometimes there's no choice when your turnover is over 75,000 or you're predicting it to be. If you're under 75,000, you do have the choice. So it's about talking through the options and the scenarios and working out what fits for you best, and then the compliance that comes with that. Other registration is pay-as-you-go withholding, and you would need that if you were hiring employees. And the other one is fuel tax credit registration. So if you're running trucks, excavators, farms, those types of things, that's another thing that you can register for and then claim the fuel tax rebate on your fuels that you use. I've also, so they're probably the legal ones, but I've also put a few others in there about domain names you can look at. And of course, any licenses applicable to your particular industry. So say you're a psychologist and you need some sort of registration or something like that to perform your work, those sorts of licenses. And there's also the Australian Business Licence and Information Service. That's a fantastic website as well. You can have a look at to see whether what you're doing, whether there are any additional licences that you might require. Insurance is a really important one, and it's really something that most businesses need to get in place before they open its doors. So there's a few different types of business insurance. There's liability, employee, asset, and revenue, just the four main groups. In business, realistically, what that means is we've got our public liability. You know, someone walks into our shop and breaks their leg or something like that. We've got our professional indemnity. So as an accountant, professional indemnity for the services that I provide. We've got product liability. So if I'm making candles and they explode or something like that, that it insures over the product. Then we can have different ones as well. So we've got things like business continuity. So if something happens in your business, whether it be maybe, you know, a flood, or if it be some other catastrophic thing that's happened in your business, you can get business continuance insurance. A lot of business owners look at things like income protection insurance as well. So if something happens within their business and they can't generate the income, then they still get the percentage of their income. There's workers' compensation for employees, which is based basically on the amount of wages that you pay each designated year. And then there's also on top of that your business insurances. So you're over your tools or your equipment or your car or building, you know, those types of things as well. So with insurance, what I always, everyone that comes to me and say, what should I do? Basically what I say to them is please go and see someone that you can sit down with face to face and have the talk, rather than trying to do it over the internet and tick boxes with what you think you require. If you have the talk with someone face to face, you know, it's a two-way conversation. There's questions on both sides, and they're going to be able to work out what sort of insurances you actually need. If you're a professional or something like that, it's probably a little bit simpler because there might be a designated insurance body that you can go through. So it's sort of a fine line with insurance. You don't want to be overinsured, but at the same time, when you open your doors for business, you don't want to be underinsured as well. And that's why I say make sure you have that conversation to determine where you are and exactly what you need.
Fleur, can I jump in? I've got a question from one of the attendees.
Mm-hmm.
If I earn an income from regular employment and earn over 75,000 and my business is off the side in addition to employment, do I need to register for GST even if I make very little additional income? It's a service-based business.
Yeah, no, you don't need to in that respect. So the 75,000 turnover is just for the business component. So it's irrespective of what you earn in interest, dividends, wages, rental properties. That doesn't come into it. All they do is they look at the business in isolation. So if you earn under 75,000 in business with your professional business, you then have the choice as to whether you want to register for GST or not. Yeah, it's only when that business income goes over 75 where the choice is removed from you.
Right. Thanks, Fleur.
Yep. The next one is about legal documents. The lot of the queries that we get here through TBAS and MBS is probably about partnership and shareholder agreements. Usually we're not talking about mum and dad partnerships or anything like that. What we're talking about is where two friends or two professionals or something like that might get together and operate a partnership, or they might get together and form a company, and they want some sort of agreement. So basically what it does is that it gives them the ability to know where each other stands. So those sorts of agreements always address the big ticket items. So that's things like what happens if one of the partners dies? What happens if one of the partners wants to sell out? How are we going to split profits? How are we going to pay ourselves? all of those types of things that usually cause angst when two people come together to operate a business, basically. So I strongly recommend getting partnership or shareholder agreements in place when it's not something you're not doing with your spouse, just so that you know where you both stand. So say, for example, if I was in partnership with someone and we decided to go our separate ways, our agreement would say something like, you know, we'd have the business valued by an independent third party, and we would rely on that valuation. You know, if we had issues, there would be like a arbitration sort of method. You know, all of those types of things would be set out into how we deal with certain things. So that's a really good one to have. You can do them up yourselves, but at the end of the day, it's also a legal document. So if you draw it up yourselves, you draw it up yourselves. If you have a lawyer, say, for example, draw it up for you, then it's probably better relied upon in a court of law, basically. Other legal documents come down to if you're purchasing a business, there'll be a contract for the purchase of the business. Other legal documents are lease agreements. If you rent a premises for your building or for your business, or a storage shed or something like that, there'll be lease agreements in place. The other ones will be legal documents with regards to employees, and there'll be things like employment letters, offers and agreements, all of those types of things. Terms and conditions is probably a really important one about credit management policy. So that sort of ties in with your debtor control. So that's about, you know, 14-day terms, implementing interest on, you know, debtors that are extremely overdue, those types of things. Terms and conditions usually have to be signed off on as well. And then there's just the policies and procedures, which aren't really a legal document, but they're more a document for you about how you want your business to run. So in the first instance, you've got your business plan, which is your sort of like a strategic overview of the business. Then you get into policies and procedures. So you want your employee, when they come in, they want to, you know, I want them to do whatever tasks they have, or this is how you want them to interact, or, you know, there's a no phone policy, or there's a dress policy, or those are the types of things that are developed in the policies and procedures as to how you want your business to be run. The next one, which everyone loves, is record keeping and compliance. This is another thing that's become more and more onerous for bookkeepers. So 10 years ago, you know, it was spreadsheets, it was little wages books, it was, you know, it was pretty relaxed. Now there's a lot more compliance. As a lot of you would know, with having employees and so forth, there's STP, the single touch payroll. In June 2026, we have payday super coming in, where you have to pay super every time you pay an employee. So there's a lot more expected of business owners now. And what that means is time. And what it also means is that we're having some of these systems was a bit of a luxury. Previously, it is now basically a cost of doing business. You need to have these systems in place to remain compliant. Yeah. So bookkeeping options, you know, if you're a small sole trader and you're still doing you're doing your own thing, you don't have any employees or anything like that, you know, there's no GST, you know, cash books, spreadsheets, they will still suffice. The other end of the spectrum is sort of where, you know, you're paying employees, you have a lot of transactions, you're registered for GST, those types of things. So then you're looking at options like, you know, Xero, which is XERO, or MyOb, or something like that, which allows for a lot of automation. It allows for a lot of record keeping. It interacts with your accountant and those types of things. So what it also means is a lot of these record keeping options, the better records you keep, the the more inexpensive a lot of other things will be. So if you're good at keeping your records, you're up to date with with all your obligations and those types of things, it's easier to get finance because everything is up to date. You've got no ATO debt or anything like that. It's easier to work with your accountant because everything is organised, everything is there, and those types of things. So record keeping is something you probably need to have a look at the first instance as well. It might start off with the cash book or the Excel spreadsheet or something like that, and then you might morph into, as it becomes cumbersome, might morph into some sort of electronic cloud-based bookkeeping system. Yeah. And working in with your accountant as well, you'll know all of your compliance obligations. If you're registered for GST, you'll have the quarterly BAS. If you have employees, you'll have pay-as-you-go, the holding and superannuation obligations and so forth. With regards to staff, we are not employment experts by any stretch of the imagination. That's TCCI. So they're definitely the ones to contact if you have any queries about legal obligations, other than the very standard, you need to pay super, you need to this, you need to do that. Legal obligations, awards, employment options, those types of things. TCCI would be the best people to contact in regards to that if they are specific questions. Like I said, we give a general overview of this is what the requirements are, but if you've got a specific question to like a particular employee or something like that, it would be best that you go and see them. And it's a fantastic resource. Or Fair Work Australia is a brilliant resource as well.
Fleur, we've got a question at that point as you just put the Q&A slide up. Is there a basic Excel spreadsheet template for bookkeeping or something similar for those starting out and not wanting to purchase software that you'd suggest?
I reckon if you go to any one of the advisors, we'd probably all have a pretty basic Excel spreadsheet that we would be able to send out to you. Basically, it just has a tab for income, a tab for expenses. We adjust it as to whether you're registered for GST or not, and that's basically all that you would need. So if you get in touch with one of your advisors or myself afterwards, we can definitely organise that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that's a pretty brief overview of it's basically about just alerting you to the things that you need to consider when you're starting up a business, right from that real infancy seed, idea, right through to basically being able to open the doors. Yep.
Excellent. Thanks, Fleur. Now, do we have any questions for Fleur? We've got plenty of time if we do have any questions. So feel free to use the Q&A or raise your virtual hand. So anything that Fleur's covered and you're thinking, oh, gee, I'd like to follow up, you've got the great opportunity of seeing Fleur or one of the business advisors to continue with getting a business set up or working through any business needs that you may have. And you can certainly just call the Business Tas team to connect with any of the advisors or any of the services that I've spoken to or Fleur's spoken about as well. So it doesn't look like we've got any last minute questions coming through at this point, Fleur. Is there anything else you wanted to add before we wind up if there's no other questions?
No, not really. So on that last slide that Kelly's going to send out, all of my contact details are there. So if you go away from this, you have a think and you have a question or anything like that, please don't hesitate to call or to email or anything like that. Or alternatively, any other of the advisors that you feel like you've got a really good fit with, don't hesitate to.
Awesome. Thank you, Fleur. So I'm sure that's given everyone a lot to think about in terms of how to get their business set up, or if they're already started, have you covered off on everything you need. So look, thank you very much for everyone's time today. I know everyone's so very busy. So please, I'd love for you to fill out the survey that we'll send you tomorrow about today's event, but also future events that you'd like us to run, and more events in this series on marketing and sales and marketing is coming up, and other events available through our Business Tasmania event calendar, through our website, through the header there. So please get in touch and use the fabulous, great services that we offer, and they're all obviously at no cost. So please, we'd love to hear from you. So thank you again and appreciate your time. Have a good day. Thank you.